Do this the old-fashioned way, though. So I go looking for these old family photos. Sometimes they're a snapshot, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's my family, and sometimes it's a stranger. But I'm always searching for those small arrangements that carry some larger feeling within them. I begin my figurative work with this found image, and I engage in a process-oriented exploration in which the more marks on the canvas, the more the work takes on its own identity. It pushes back and it makes its own demands of what it wants to be. This means I never know what the work will become when I start. It's a conversation that I have. Sometimes a piece is simple and clear and it immediately reveals itself, and sometimes it's to work my way through. So even though it's this very complicated and sometimes winding process, I'm always hoping to develop the architecture around the seed image to reveal a window that allows the viewer and myself to join in a larger emotional truth. When I'm in this process, I float back and forth between being an observer and a participant, which mirrors a meditative state. I inhabit my body and my mind to critique and engage with what's happening on the canvas, and I float outside of my selfhood as I become absorbed in the action. You can see the mobility of identity in my figurative work as an obfuscation of the face or exposure of the interior of the body, or maybe the migration of the watercolor and subsequent breaking of the form in the abstract work. The question that I'm asking is, where does identity live? What are those cycles? What things in our lives and our selfhood is perpetuated and what is lost? There are layers of color and marks that act as a vehicle of the experience of time. So as they accumulate, they act to annihilate the clarity of the image with which I started, exactly the way a memory is further removed from the event on which it's based every time you recall it. Remembering is an act of creation and destruction at once, because essentially the brain is recreating only the last time you recalled an event instead of the event itself. So each remembering rewrites itself over and further obscures the actual experience that you may have had. Under the accumulation of time, memory breaks apart, just like the body, or like clouds, or an old farm. The embroidery that you see in the figurative and the abstract work is a revisitation of an old childhood habit as well. When my mom was working, sometimes an old neighbor would watch me. Her name was Mema, and Mema taught me a few simple embroidery stitches that became a really calming way for me to pass the time. Eventually, I intuitively included these in my work, but over the years, they've come to carry ideas of connection and enfoldment and the hand of the feminine work in art. It adds a sculptural element that encourages a heightened sense of looking, which I hope invites viewers to examine the work within the context of their own personal horizon. Where does it take you? Where does it connect you to? What's the place in time? This is especially important in the abstract pieces because they're built from and around the physicality and interaction of time and media on the paper. I want the paintings and drawings to break the plane of forced perspective of something two-dimensional that can only be viewed from the front. What happens when I give the work a chance to change the way it shows and displays itself? What does that allow the viewer to experience? What new work is made through this interaction? Even with the most thoughtful themes, I find the most meaning in work that connects with people, that can connect us to each other. I think art has a job, and I think it should move us in some way. I think it can validate feelings that are both too nuanced and complicated to express in language. And I think that reflects so much of the human experience. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, but I'm so grateful for a community that reaches out to each other. I hope you can continue to look for opportunities to connect to the people and places around you, and I hope I get to connect more with this community in person soon. I was really excited to be able to show you guys my work. You can also find me on social media and I have a website. It's at www.skcameron.com. I want to thank Coldwell Banker Bain for giving me this opportunity to show my work. And Bainbridge Island, you were very great, and I think we have a really great community. Bye, guys.